What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here with two special guests once again. We have in one corner the man, the myth, the legend, Apple Juice AC. And in the other corner, the man whose team was eliminated last week. He's still not happy about it either. It's Dilly Vanilli. What's going on, guys?
Not much. I will be answering no questions about the Cowboys in the chat today or ever. Thank you very much. I will be talking about NFC and AFC Championship games. Let's get to it.
Yeah, we're moving on. This isn't a look back. You know what I mean? I agree with you. It's not a look back. You know?
No review.
No. That's the offseason. We got a whole offseason to talk about that. We're here for conference championships.
Okay, so let's say hello to the people in the chat before we get started, and you guys know what to do if you're in the chat right now. I don't know why you haven't already. Make sure that you do. Gronk, Spike, the like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you're stumbling upon this video. And Gronk, Spike, the notification bell for the latest upload. We will be live. I will be live at the very least. For the AFC and NFC Championship game. So make sure that you guys do subscribe and hit that notification bell so that when we go live, you are notified. Okay, so let's say hello to Big Al. He says, what's up, Mitch, AC, and Dilly, the Eagles fan himself in the chat. Harley Quinn is in the chat. E2 says, hi, Mitch. What's up, E2? We got Jake in the chat. Who else is here? Sing. Thank you guys for joining. Shout out to Harley Quinn, always in the chat. Let's begin. Waste no more time. No review. No looking back. Nope. We're all about what's ahead. Let's begin with the AFC title game. The AFC Championship game, which we were discussing before we went on air. We were discussing how much line movement, which is very odd for this closely contested football game, that there has been here for the AFC Championship, because it looked like Kansas City was going to be favored. The books had Kansas City because they're at home, they're at Arrowhead, they're the number one seed. It makes sense. All of a sudden, everybody's betting the Bengals. Everybody's betting the Bengals. It gets up to like 2.5, shoots back down to 1.5 for a while, and then all of a sudden now we're back at a pick'em. So depending on when you've bet this game, when you've been looking at the spreads, you might have had a different line, you might have bet a different number, and you might still be betting a different number. I mean, Kansas City, AC, what do you think? Do you think Kansas City's going to be favored before this game kicks off?
I don't know how they can be. The only way they'd be favored by is one, and like they say, home field advantage is about 2.5, 3 points. People say 3 points. I think it's a bit high, but still, going by that logic, I could see maybe it going to like 1.5, but at that, it's really a pick'em. But I do think the Bengals, it's a one-game playoff. It's tough to do what the Bengals have been doing against the Chiefs. I think on paper, it looks like the Bengals are the better team, the more talented team besides a couple positions. So it's going to be a good one. But then it's KC at home, and you know, the Bengals are tired of hearing about the Chiefs, even though they're undefeated like against them. And then the Chiefs are probably tired of hearing about the Bengals beating them all the time. So it's like both teams can create their own narratives in this game to somehow talk their dressing rooms into being the underdogs. It's like you can't have two underdogs. And I think if there are two underdogs, it's both these teams, because both teams, like I said, can create a narrative in their locker room that they are the underdogs in this game.
That is true. That is true. And AC knows what it's like to be an underdog, although he is not an underdog this week.
Well,
no dog mask allowed this week, AC. No dog mask.
If we didn't blow out the Giants, anyways, we'll get to that. But if we didn't blow out the Giants, I think San Francisco's favored.
Okay. All right. Interesting. So we're on the AFC Championship. As we said, it's in Arrowhead. No neutral site. Thank everybody. Thank you, Bengals. I don't want the neutral site. But let's begin by breaking it down. Of course, I think the biggest storyline of the game is Patrick Mahomes' injury. Obviously, there's a lot of talk when it comes to Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Mahomes versus Joe Burrow. There's been a lot of talk of, if Joe Burrow wins this game, is he the best quarterback in the NFL? Maybe we can touch on that for a second. I think there's an argument. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is going to win the MVP, but if Joe Burrow goes to Patrick Mahomes' place and beats him 2 years in a row and is playing at an elite level, there's no question about it. I at least think there's an argument. Do you guys think there's an argument to that?
I think there's an argument to be made. As I've said before, I think the first month or so, Burrow was kind of struggling here, and then ever since then, he's looked like a top 5 MVP candidate, and he's done very good with the weapons he's had. Of course, he has a lot of great weapons, but I think the argument can be made. Plus, I mean, you got to look at the record, 3-0 against the Chiefs since he's been the quarterback. So that's something to consider in this kind of race.
AC?
Yeah, no, I think it's easy to say that if he does get this done, he should. I guess people will say that he's the best quarterback in the NFL. But then what does he do again, right? Because I do think there was a lot of talk even last year. He was still getting that best quarterback in the NFL. And then, what happens in the last game you play? So let's just say if he does get it done, I still think he needs one more game. And then all of a sudden it's Madden covers, it's commercials for Joe Burrow. It's taking that Mahomes ad money for sure if he wins the Super Bowl. I think just winning this game isn't enough for that big allure of national popularity. He's already there, but to get to that next Mahomes level, he needs to win the next one after this.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. I think Joe Burrow's been amazing. I think Joe Burrow has been the best pocket quarterback in the NFL this year. I think Patrick Mahomes has been the best playmaker. Patrick Mahomes overall, I think, has been the best quarterback this year, and I did not say that about him last year. I thought it was a down year last year for Patrick Mahomes, quite honestly. And for Joe Burrow, I felt like last playoffs, as much as he got all the headlines, I don't think he was really the reason they went to the Super Bowl. And I know he was part of it, but the defense played a huge role. And that's where we should begin, is looking at that matchup, the Cincinnati defense versus the Kansas City offense. Because I think that's a big reason they were able to win that game last year in the AFC Championship, win the game earlier this year. Big game Lou, comes through with these game plans. And I think one of the themes that he just brings to the table is that game plan specific coordinator. He's not a guy that, he only plays cover 3. He only plays man. He only does 0 blitz. No, this is a guy that he's going to have 3-man rush. That was a common theme against Mahomes last year. 3-man rush, drop 8. Then he's going to rush 4. Then he's going to, rush 6 and blitz. And then he's going to double Kelsey. And then he's going to do this and that. And he's going to do a lot of different things to try to confuse Mahomes and try to take Andy Reid out of his kind of rhythm of play calling. Of course, they've got a very good defensive line. I think an underrated one. Trey Hendrickson had a great game last week. I think they've got 2 great guys in the middle, BJ Hill and DJ Reader, who can stop the run. So will Kansas City be able to run the ball and take some pressure off that ankle of Mahomes? We will see. Sam Hubbard's been very good, and even guys like Osai coming off the bench, rushing the passer, have been good as well. I think this comes down to, for me, is can Patrick Mahomes and this Chiefs offense, I know this sounds backwards and kind of weird, and it doesn't go along with the narrative of past years, because people used to say, you got to make Mahomes play in the structure. You got to make him throw it underneath. I think this game comes down to, can Mahomes create the big throws down the field? Because I think you can take advantage of the Bengals' secondary corners, like corners on the outside, Eli Apple, Cam Britt over there. I feel like the young kid, you could take advantage of those corners. The Bengals got good linebackers. They got good safeties. They got guys that can tackle in the middle of the field. I think they'll have a plan for Kelsey. Usually Trey Flowers matches up with Kelsey a lot. I think it's going to come down to, can Valdez Scantling create a big play? Can Kadarius Toney create a big play? Can one of these receivers create a couple chunk plays for this offense? Because I think it's challenging to go 10 plays on a drive to beat this Bengals defense the way they're playing right now. Do you guys agree with me? Do you guys see a narrative, an X factor, something within this matchup that you're really looking forward to? Dilly, what do you think?
I think, yes, I agree that the big plays are going to be something, but I want to see who's going to match up with Kelsey, because we talked about it last week how the Jaguars really had no corner to focus on Kelsey, and they
Yep.
were able to just dominate. 14 catches, 98 yards, 2 touchdowns. Wasn't exactly big plays, but it was almost always either a first down or a touchdown. So 14 catches, I mean, he was pretty much the big part of their offense. And that also had to do with the fact that a lot of the throws in the second half had to do with more checkdowns and not being able to throw the ball deep. But still, we talked about it in our preview even before that injury. Like, nobody was going to cover him. Is there going to be somebody on this Bengals defense that can do that? I think there are more candidates to do it. They have better linebackers. They don't necessarily have better corners. We've talked about their corners with Eli Apple and Cam Taylor-Britt. But I think that's going to be something to look forward to again with this matchup here, because with Mahomes, is he going to be able to throw those balls? Is he going to be able to just have those 8-yard passes to Kelsey? Will somebody able to contain that? I think that's my big matchup here. Past that, I agree. I do see that Mahomes is going to have to. I don't know what his ankle injury is right now. Apparently, he looked good in the, or it didn't look like he was limping today in their meetings. So I don't know. But to me, I think Kelsey's going to be the biggest matchup.
Yeah, so just to answer that question, so typically what the Bengals have done in these matchups is usually play Trey Flowers. He's like a big cornerback. He used to play for the Seahawks. I think he's about 6'3" ish. So he's like a big corner, and usually they use him as like this matchup player on tight end. So he'll like sometimes the Bengals will play like a zone defense, and this is where the 3-man rush comes in, and then they'll have like Flowers manning up on Kelsey, and like everyone else is playing zone or something to that degree. Trey Flowers is one of the solutions. Dax Hill, they drafted him out of the first round of Michigan, is another one that would make sense if Trey Flowers is not on him on certain plays, if they're playing some sort of man coverage. But obviously, we'll see what they do. Those have been the guys that maybe would draw that assignment. To point out to Mahomes earlier, the Bengals defense in the first matchup did hold him to like one of his worst games of the year. I believe he was 16 for 27, 223 yards, a touchdown pass. His fewest completions of the season earlier this year. So, it wasn't Mahomes' best game of the year, and a lot of that I felt like was because of how Big Lou was kind of keeping him on his toes and in some ways forcing him to throw the ball down the field, like I said. AC, what do you think is the big X factor in this matchup?
I think I just will go defensive line. If Mahomes can't move as much, and we talked about it last week heading into the Bills game as well. It's like that defensive line has played very well the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season. It's getting pressure with Hendrickson. They're playing really well, and I think they got a lot of pressure on the Bills. Defensively, like you said, their linebackers are good. Like anytime you watch the Bengals play, somehow Wilson just like stands out.
He's
on
really
most
good.
on most plays. Where, you know what I mean? He doesn't really have the body type of an athletic linebacker. He has the body type of like a 2-down linebacker that can't really cover and run around, but he totally does that, and it's impressive. The secondary played pretty well. I just think a bit of it, and obviously this is not a recap, that was really impressive against the Bills. But just watching that game, there was something off about the Bills. And maybe it was the Bengals, what they did. But they're also it felt like there was something off about the Bills offense that just like wasn't clicking. And yes, give credit to the Bengals defense for doing that. I'm not trying to take it away. It's just, I don't know. A lot of people wanted to crown that Bengals defense, and they did play well. But I do think a little part of it was just like there was something up with that Bills team. But they still, the Bills were great, and look what they did against the Bills. They basically won that game for them. I think they can do it again, but I do think it just starts with the defensive line, which has been the best unit for the Bengals in the last 5 weeks. I think they continue to do that, and we'll see and then Chiefs offensively, like one of those receivers is gonna have to make a big play, right? In crunch time. Because I could easily see that whole Chiefs thing if they lost this game, or even how close that Jags game was. Everyone starts talking. It's like they needed a Tyreek Hill. You know, I could definitely see that being like the narrative in this game. Oh, they really could have used Tyreek Hill. And
Yeah, for sure. I don't disagree, and I might even be saying that after this game. Yeah, I'm a big Tyreek Hill guy. It's hard to replace that guy, but that's why they picked up a guy like Tony. They signed Juju. They signed Valdez-Scantling. They have these guys because last year the problem was, well, we only got 2 guys to throw to. Well, now they got more, but can any of them step up in that big situation? I think the running game as well, which we haven't really touched on. Pacheco had a pretty nice game in the first matchup. Like, he was able to make some plays, and he looked explosive last week. He is definitely a guy that can take it the distance if he sees just a little bit of space there. And I like him as a hard runner. So I think they're going to have to stay balanced. Like, I think Reed's going to have to be honest. Sometimes he does get a little pass happy, and for good reason. I mean, he's got Mahomes and stuff, but I feel like they should be balanced in this game, especially if Mahomes is a little hobbled and can't really extend those plays. They're going to have to stay balanced. I think the Bengals are definitely going to probably lean towards taking away the pass over the run. So I do feel like there's going to be avenue for them to run the football and stay balanced. Moving to the other side of the football, this is the one where I feel like the Bengals have clearly kind of dominated this matchup over the last 3 games. And it's mostly to do with how just ridiculous their receiving core is. Like, Joe Burrow has played well, but the Chiefs just simply have not been able to match up with Jamar Chase most specifically. And then on top of that, they did do a better job last time they played. I think he caught 7 for 79, which is still a solid game, but it's not like 200-something yards like he had last year. And then T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, and now you got Hayden Hurst to deal with. In the first game, Samaje Perine was the running back. Joe Mixon did not play. Had over 100 yards in that game, which was one of the best games I've ever seen him play in his career. So a lot of it is like a mismatch thing. Do you guys think the Chiefs can do anything better this time around, or do you see anything from the Chiefs defense right now that makes you think they're going to do a better job of slowing down Joe Burrow and company? Dilly?
I think there's some things to kind of like about what they're bringing this time around. I like you said, they have been kind of getting beat in certain ways here in the last couple of weeks, especially in their matchups. With the Bengals, it's been kind of a struggle for them. But I think eventually you see a team enough times and you kind of learn, like, okay, this is kind of something we need to focus on. If anything, I think they want to focus on stopping Jamar Chase, and if somebody else can get open, they're just going to have to accept it. That's one thing I think. And also for the Bengals, which is a positive, is that the running game kind of got going last week. I know obviously the weather kind of had to do something with it, even though Burrow still threw 36 times. They were able to rush for over 100 yards. Thank you for the bet, because apparently they weren't supposed to run it all. I had a bet where it was Joe Mixon and Devin Singletary combined 88.5 yards, which I thought was absolutely ridiculous. So I took it. And Joe Mixon got 105 on his own. So, Devin Singletary did nothing. Thank you.
Joe Mixon had an unreal game last week, honestly.
Yeah. He had one of his best games of the season. So, that's something I think that's going to be a benefit for the Bengals is okay, we know he's still a good running back, and we know that he can play here in the playoffs. So that's, I think, something the Chiefs are going to be a little bit worried about for me. I don't know if they're going to be able to match up with everybody, like I said, but I think there's going to be some matchups they are going to want to focus on more, and they'll just kind of be content with living if, let's say, T. Higgins goes off. He only had 3 catches last week. I could see more coming his way. I think he could be an X factor here.
Yeah, they do have I don't recall if McDuffie played in the first matchup, but he's been really good since he came back for them, and they haven't allowed a 300-yard passer since he was back in the lineup. I saw that statistic earlier today. Talking about Mixon and the run game, I mean, awesome last week, but I will say the Chiefs are a lot more equipped of playing the run than the Bills are. The Bills just got steamrolled. It felt like they were too small or something. The Bengals just beat them up with a backup offensive line, and I think that's where AC is going to go probably. Chris Jones is an absolute freak show. Probably the best interior defense lineman in the league right now, so he might have to take over this game. Is that where you're looking, AC, for the Chiefs defense?
Yeah, it's the only to get Burrow's been unbelievable in the pocket too, even when he's faced pressure, which is huge. But I'm wondering if if Spags tries to dial something up with having someone kind of almost like us in a spy, that when you get pressure, because I thought the Bills defense did it on passing plays, did a good job of kind of getting to Burrow, but Burrow is so good at moving up into the pocket or side and getting away that like you almost have to coach that and game plan for that. Like, yeah, we're going to get pressure, but he's so good at moving and throwing that like we almost need someone watching for that and coming in later or something like that. Or in a way, like obviously he's unbelievable in the pocket too, but maybe like more delayed stunts and whatnot that, you know, his clock takes a bit more time where if he does need a move, he needs to throw it right away instead of kind of moving and then looking. So that's a big thing for me. Like you said, though, with McDuffie being back and the Chiefs defense, that first time around, they have statistically been better, right? So, and even if you think about it, the Jags were all hyped that, you know, we watched the Jags in the San Diego game and everyone was hyped on that Jags defense and they did a pretty good job. You know, there's the brain
They
fart
actually
touch.
did, yeah.
Yeah, like Lawrence only threw for 217, and obviously Zay Jones and Kirk and like Ingram combination is not as good as Higgins and Chase, not even close. But like they're still athletic, right? Like I kind of take away that where I think that athleticism is there, but obviously Chase just one-on-one is going to be better, right? Like he's going to make plays in coverage that those guys might not. And then, you know, besides that, even in the Jags game, besides that was kind of a brain fart coverage thing that they lost on that you can't do. Like in playoff time, you can't do that. And I was surprised on that, where it's like when you're in the playoffs, when guys are wide open and stuff, even if it's just for one touchdown, that can cost you. So that's somewhat in the back of my mind. I do think the Bengals are rolling, and I think they're going to stop the run, and it's going to be Joe Burrow passing. Like Hayden Hurst has impressed me. He's kind of been a low key on that Bengals team, but lately he's made some big catches at big times, and that's what you need. Yeah. We'll see. It should be one of the better games of the weekend. We'll see.
You brought up a very interesting point with the stunts and stuff, because that's something that I think the Bills kind of were underwhelming in the department of trying to mess with the protections and stuff and trying to confuse the Bengals up front, because you got to test that. I mean, they're not really familiar with each other. They're a bunch of backups. I mean, it's the first game they're playing, and the Bills pretty much just sent 4 like all game. I think they maybe resorted to some blitzes when they were getting torched early in the game, so they were like, in the second half, let's throw a couple blitzes out there. But it was nothing too crazy. I mean, Spagnuolo's definitely a guy that you don't really want to be blitzing Burrow all the time, but it just takes 2 or 3 in this game if they can get home against this protection, where that could change the game when you've got Mahomes on the other side to potentially get a turnover or something, or a stop or something, because it just feels like the Chiefs will definitely, they got Chris Jones and maybe Frank Clark and Karlaftis come to play, but they're going to need to get home a couple times against Burrow and cause a big third down stop or something. The other thing I look at too is the kickers. I mean, Butker hasn't been his best this year. McPherson hasn't been as good as last year. But we all know that these Bengals games have come down to him in the past. So that's another area where maybe you look at that. But yeah, man, this game is going to be really good. I could see both teams scoring. I could see both defenses coming to play. Like, I could really see this game being a lot lower scoring than people think, and also still living up to the hype and being a shootout. Like, I could see both games coming to play. For the Chiefs, I think that they need to start fast in this game. The game that they lost earlier this year, they were down 14-3 early. The Bengals have just done this routinely as of late, where they've just jumped out in front. They play great offensively to start because their script is so effective with Zach Taylor. And then their defense makes a stop, and then all of a sudden they're up 14 points. I mean, they did against New England. New England actually came back and made it interesting. They did against Buffalo. Buffalo couldn't come back, which was shocking to me. But then the Chiefs, if they're actually able to get a lead, if the Chiefs are actually able to, at home, put the pressure, the crowds into it, the pass rush is coming after Burrow, that's where maybe you could look at the Chiefs winning this game at home. But for me, I'm going to take the Bengals because I just think they're the better team. I think Mahomes is still the better quarterback. I think Andy Reid's the better coach. But at the end of the day, I think the Bengals are a very good team. I think they're better than they were last year. Despite the offensive line injuries, I think Their receiving core is unbelievable. It's just hard to match up with. They've been so effective and so efficient in their passing game. They've found balance in their running game. Their defense, like I rave about it, is so well prepared in all situations. And I think they come through here. It's going to be close in my opinion, but I'll take the Bengals to win something similar to what the game was earlier this year, something like 27-24. But I'm going to go a little bit more decisive due to the ankle with Mahomes. So I'm going to go 27-21 for Cincinnati here. Dilly, what's your score and your prediction?
I think it's going to be a close one. I'm going to take the under on the score on this game. I believe the under over is 47. So I believe I'm going to go under with it. I'm going to go 23-20, and I'm going to go with the Chiefs winning this game.
Woo!
I'm going to go a little out there.
You got to explain this one, Dilly, because you weren't really giving anything away here.
Yeah, I try to keep it under the right here to the chest till the very end. What I think it's going to come down to is bend but don't break defense. As I just mentioned, 23-20, that's going to involve a lot of field goals. That's going to be involved in a lot of it's third and 7 here at the 30. What is the team going to do? What's the defense going to bring? There could be a big sack coming up and forcing them to kick a field goal rather than getting that touchdown, which is going to be disappointing for an offense and obviously a big win for the defense going forward. I think the coaching is going to be a big factor. We know what Andy Reid can bring to the table here. AFC Championship. And, the ankle is obviously a big factor. If there is a bigger emphasis on that injury as we go in, obviously I'm going to see more of the Bengals winning this game. But as it stands right now, I think it's just going to be a hard 60 minutes of football. And I think experience kind of comes down to that at that point with Andy Reid and this team. So I'm going to go 23-20. I think it's going to be fun, but I don't think it's going to be a shootout. That's pretty much my biggest prediction. I think this is going to be a very tight, close game with maybe long drives, but nothing too crazy. I don't see many explosive plays going to be here.
Okay. AC? I think you're on mute.
Rookie mistake. I think I'm closer to what you said, Mitch. I do think Mahomes is the better quarterback. Andy Reid's the better coach, and unless Zach Taylor?
Zach Taylor, yeah.
Not
Unless
Wilson.
Unless he really, really screws up, which, if you think about it, he has been prone to be outcoached, regardless of his talent. Unless he does something very stupid or his game plan's very stupid, I see the Bengals winning this game. And for betting purposes, if it's a pick-em, I'd try to get the extra 2.5 points too, give the Chiefs some points. Bengals -2.5, save for that field goal, get a little extra juice on your bet. Actually, take the VIG back. That's what that would do. Take whatever the sportsbook don't want to give you, and you can get it back by saying the points. But so that's my pick. I think that the Bengals are going to go to the Super Bowl, and they'll be playing. Who knows?
We'll get to that. Do you have a score prediction?
I'm gonna go a bit higher. I'm gonna go 31-24.
Okay.
Bengals.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be in that range. I'm a little surprised by Dilly going a little bit lower scoring in that game, but I like the idea of it. I could see it, like I said. I don't know. It's hard for me with Burrow and Mahomes to say that this is going to be that low scoring.
These playoffs have been surprising in certain ways. We got a lot of blowouts last week, and I think we're going to get some kind of a close, tight matchup here. I got that low scoring feeling.
All right, so let's move on to the game that we wanted to save for last, although I believe it's actually first on the day. San Francisco 49ers, bang, bang, Niner gang at the Philadelphia Eagles. So the Eagles are favored by 2.5, which is not quite the 3. But they're at home. This is the best team in the NFC all year. And they're taking on a 49er team with a Cinderella story. At quarterback, that is Brock Purdy. And this, to me, man, this is going to be a trench battle. This is going to be old school. This is going to be O-line, D-line. This is going to be physical. This is going to be great up front. I mean, this is a lot different from the other game. And that's why I love both these games, honestly, is because I feel like one game has that quarterback matchup and all the skill players and the great creative offense. But this game is going to be about physicality up front and old school NFC football. And these are two of the best rosters in the league. I think you would argue that these are the two best rosters in the NFL. These are the two best top to bottom teams all around in the NFL. At least that's what I would say. Man, let's just begin with AC because he is the fan. He is the Eagles man. Let's hear what he has to say.
Yeah, it was. I'm feeling a lot different sitting here today than I was a week ago. Because if we look at it a week ago, I told you guys, it was a tough last 4 weeks of the season for the Eagles, right? A lot of people wrote them off, and it was always talking about San Francisco's the best team. And, we built that kind of underdog role again. And then because how the Giants played against the Vikings, and I know a lot of people thought that the Vikings are bad, and they're really bad, but there still was a lot of talk. If there was, I was watching ESPN a lot, and a lot of people in that game against the Giants, they said, who has the chance to be the upset? A lot of them were taking the Giants over the Eagles. And then all of a sudden, the Eagles come out like the team that I saw the first 14 weeks of the season, dominating the offensive line, dominating the defensive line, quick to the ball in the secondary, and then huge run game, and then Jalen Hurts making passes when he needs to. I was so impressed with our run game, and I actually thought it was one of Miles Sanders' best games he's ever played, even though he didn't even have to run in the second half because our backup running back ran for 100 yards just in the second half, just trying to kill clock. That was an extra 100. But the way Sanders moved in the hole last game was impressive. He was getting 4 or 5 extra yards on one move. Mm-hmm. So now I was watching that game. I was like, Dallas versus San Francisco. And then I started, after that Eagles won, I'm like, oh, man, we're a wagon. And then when I was watching that San Francisco, I was like, I'm scared. I don't want to play Dallas. I don't want to play Dallas at all. Just as an Eagles fan, I thought Dallas was going to win. I thought they were the better team in that moment offensively. And then Dak Prescott just didn't come to play. Well, unfortunately. But watching that game, we'll get into the offense, defense. Watching that game, I saw a rookie quarterback for the first time against San Francisco. And I think that was the best defense he played. And I think he's about to play the next best defense or even better defense than he just saw. And we'll get into the things like that. I'm feeling very confident going into playing this San Francisco game. That's all I'll say for now. I'm very confident. Okay. The Eagles at home against a rookie quarterback in the league, the NFC Championship. If somehow Purdy pulls this off, he's the next Tom Brady. He's the next. I will bow down and call him Tom Brady. He's the best, and I'll root for his whole career. But there's no chance this guy's coming in to the link and beating the wagon Philadelphia Eagles.
I don't think we know who AC is picking. So in terms of these two teams, I will say these two teams I feel like are going to challenge each other in ways that I don't think either team has been challenged this year. In both ways, I feel like because of how even they are at the line of scrimmage, because of how good the Eagles are in running the ball, how good the Niners are at stopping the run, how good of a pass rush the Eagles have. I feel like it's going to be interesting in just ways that we can't really predict until we see it on the field because it's just, they're both so good. It's just going to be interesting from that standpoint. So let's begin with the Eagles offense taking on the Niners defense, which to me is the more intriguing aspect of the game. It might not be the side of the ball that will determine the game, but I think it is the side of the ball that will be more interesting, just at least at the beginning for me to sit down and be like, okay, let's see how D'Amico Ryans is going to defend Jalen Hurts and stuff. So let's begin with Dilly and your thoughts on this side of the ball, the Niners D, number 1 D in the league, taking on the number 1 run offense and one of the top offenses in the league in Philadelphia.
Well, first off, this is an interesting matchup for all three of us because we got an Eagles fan, a Shanahan fan, and a guy that doesn't like either of these teams. Just joking.
Well, I don't
This
think you're
game,
joking. I don't think you like the Niners anymore.
no, I have no idea what you're talking about. I would have no feelings about this whatsoever. So, yeah, Eagles offense, 49ers defense. When I watched the game Saturday night for the Eagles, I was very intrigued to see how they were going to start off the game, how they were going to push the ball, go against the Giants defense and that defensive line that we were talking about in our preview last week. And they pretty much decimated them across the board. And it mostly had to do with the running game. As AC brought up, it was more about Sanders. It was more about Gainwell, getting yards and progressing down the field. Hurts only ran for like 30 yards. We were talking about the QB rushing matchups. They didn't play a factor whatsoever in the game, which it helps that your team is in a big lead. You don't really have to run with the QB, but still, it didn't really play a big factor in the game. It was more about rushing. And of course, Hurts being pretty accurate. I think in his first 11 passes, he was like 10 for 11. He was like super accurate with the ball, and it didn't look like it was much of a phase at all. That being said, this is a different defense. They are going against the 49ers defense, who has all these playmakers, all this talent on their side of the ball. And as a Cowboys fan, I saw what the 49ers defense was doing, and they didn't really make a whole lot of mistakes for the most part. They were able to contain. They were able to, rush. They got a couple of interceptions and turnovers that were key for them in the game against the Cowboys. And yeah. I'm not saying here that they're going to get those turnovers, but they definitely have the opportunity to do that. I think for the Eagles, what their biggest thing is to pretty much carry the same game plan from last week going into this week. I think if you can get those runs, I know the 49ers rush defense is very good, but if you're able to get that and create that as part of your offense, that's going to be one thing to really help you out. And then, of course, you've got the receiving core of A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, who were used last week, but it wasn't like their best games of the season. If they can have those great games that they can have, I mean, it's going to put a lot of pressure on the other side of the ball for the 49ers, which we'll get into, and I'm interested to talk about that as well. But, yeah, I think it's going to be a combination of, are we going to see more Jalen in the rush game? Are we going to see the rush game be as consistent as they were last week against a better defense here? And then also just seeing how they're going to mix it up with those receiver talents and Goddard as well, and trying to push it. I don't think they're going to lean on one guy in particular. I think it's going to be pretty much spread across the board with all bunch of guys getting the ball. So I think it's going to be interesting. And of course, the Eagles, pretty much just controlled the whole narrative from play one against the Giants. They got that first drive going and they never looked back. Are they going to be able to get that same kind of offensive start going in, or is it going to take some time to rev up the engine and maybe it's a second half thing? I'm interested to see how they're going to start off the game.
AC, what do you think's the key for the Eagles offense here to attack San Francisco's defense? How do you think their best approach to attack this defense is?
I think San Francisco is going to try to stop the run and DeMeco Ryans is going to try to test Hurts like every team has done in the past that when their games have been close. And then it's just how healthy Hurts is throwing the ball, right? Like you have some big time receivers and big time tight ends, right? That this is the best defense the Eagles will face this whole season. Even if they won this game, it's the best defense they're going to face, right?
Yeah.
I do think it's all on Hurts and how Hurts plays. I think he's going to have to throw the ball. I think he's going to run more. And I think I was reading something that San Francisco is hasn't been good against running quarterbacks. Or I think maybe that was like a random game against Atlanta when like Mariota ran for 60 yards or something like that.
Yeah, they did. They did lose to Atlanta. That was a game where Nick Bosa didn't play. They didn't have a few players, but yeah, they haven't really been. We haven't really seen it very often. They haven't played anybody like Hurts. They didn't play Lamar. There's only so many quarterbacks. They played Fields the first game of the year, but that was kind of a shit show. So it's kind of tough to say. Overall, yeah.
And
that's why it's hard to predict.
We're not gonna know until we watch that game. The one thing I will say is just like the Eagles are going against the best defense they've played, San Francisco's that defensive line is going against the best offensive line they've seen all season. Yep. We talked about Dexter Lawrence. Kelsey destroyed him. Everyone, and obviously that's one guy and not a complete unit. So obviously that's not a good example. But even having Lane Johnson back with a big injury was just, like Hurts never even got touched.
Yeah.
And obviously that's a different defensive line, but I'm just saying San Francisco fans in general have to know how good this offensive line is and how they can push even the best around. Like we say in all these games, like with the Eagles games, it's in the trenches. And if you're losing the battles and it's even, it comes down to quarterback play, which we're a good segue into the next side of the ball, because at the end of the day, when two teams are even, it comes down to quarterback play. So who is going to be that X factor, or who's going to be the better quarterback, right?
Yeah, so I have a lot to say about this side of the ball in terms of, so looking at that run game. Now, as we've said, we don't have a lot of indication because they didn't play earlier like the Bengals and the Chiefs of how they actually match up on the field. But in terms of the Niners, I don't think there is a defense better suited to stopping the Eagles' run game than the Niners. It's because they are arguably the best run defense in the league, but the reason they are that is because they are fast. They are great tackling team. So they rank number 1 in open field rush defense, DVOA, and first and second level defense. So what that means, that comes down to their linebackers. Their linebackers are very athletic. Their linebackers are very fast. They can read things very quickly. So I think they're going to have a great opportunity to slow down the read option stuff. And I think a lot of the Eagles rushing yards are going to come down to just kind of like moving, just physically moving them for a few yards here and there. I don't think they're going to just be able to gash the Niners. I think it's going to be like a few yards, maybe in short yardage and stuff, they'll be able to convert, but it's going to come down to Jalen Hurts. And I do feel like AC is right. Like if the Eagles are going to win, it's going to be the quarterback who wins it for them. It's going to be the passing game, because I do think you can throw the ball on the Niners. But the interesting thing about that matchup is, as we discussed last week, we said, Dak Prescott, he's got to be able to win vertically down the field, throw the ball. That's where Jalen Hurts has been very, very good this year, and that's where the Niners have not been very good, is the ability to throw the ball down the field. I do expect the Niners to play a lot of zone coverage. I did see a statistic about cover 3, which is Jalen Hurts' worst defense that he does face. So the Niners do play 35% cover 3, which is the 7th most in the NFL. Makes sense because they're kind of a variation of the Seattle defense, which used to play a lot of cover 3. They play a lot of quarters. So I feel like zone's going to be heavy because Jalen Hurts. You got to look at Jalen Hurts. You can't let him run around against man coverage all the time, and you can't match up with these receivers if you're the Niners. You can't expect to do that. You can't expect it. At times, I would expect Charvarius Ward to be covering A.J. Brown, but I don't necessarily know that they're going to try to make that a thing the whole time. So yeah, Jalen Hurts in terms of downfield passes of 25 plus yards, 798 yards, 10 touchdowns, only 1 pick, 125 quarterback rating, which is one of the best in the NFL, right? And then the Niners, 41% completion, but they had 687 yards, 5 touchdowns, 2 picks. So still an 106 rating. That's still pretty good for 25 yards down the field. They're not very good against those type of passes. But as we said, San Francisco is very good underneath against Dallas, right? They're first against underneath passes. Dallas didn't really test them too much down the field. Part of that was the pass rush. Dallas was scared of the pass rush. Dak was, I guess they didn't have the ability to throw it down the field. I don't really know. But if the Eagles can buy time, they might be able to hit some big plays down the field, even if their run game isn't there. But then again, how consistent will their offense be with the run game isn't there? I don't know, because Jalen Hurts isn't necessarily the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest drop back, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, throw 5 yards every time type of quarterback. So he's going to have those explosive. He's going to have to buy time. He's going to have to make those plays on the move and stuff like that. DeMeco Ryans blitzing may come into play here because he is okay with blitzing. I mean, they do blitz a fair amount despite them having a strong 4-man rush. So I'm sure that he'll throw that occasionally in there. The question will be for the Niners, if you do blitz, can you match up with these receivers? Don't really know. So yeah, looking at that side of the ball, I feel fairly good about the Niners defense, but I also can see an approach where the Eagles can have some success, especially through the air. So it's pretty balanced overall. Now yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just saying, just before you go into this, the one thing I will say is that I do think the Eagles can solidify this game early on by getting it. Not saying they're going to dominate San Francisco's defense, Like,
Yeah.
I do think San Francisco is going to win a lot of battles. Eagles, if the Eagles can at least win the first battle and score early, I do think that puts pressure on the whole entire game on the San Francisco side. Because I do think even if the Eagles did score early, I do think it's not like San Francisco's defense is dead in the water. I just think from a game, like, you want to score first, right? That's easier. Like, obviously, that's football.
Yeah.
But I do think it's really key in this game.
Yeah, we said it about, or I said it about the Chiefs too. Like, I think both home teams would benefit from a quick start. In terms of, before we get to the other side of the ball, there was one matchup in particular that I do think could be sort of an X factor, which is Nick Bosa versus Jordan Mailata, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He was amazing last year. This year, he's kind of been the weak link. I think he's allowed 6 sacks this year for the Eagles. So if there is that possibility of the Niners stopping the run on early downs, and then we get to 3rd down and long, Nick Bosa is going to have to feast on that matchup. And the Eagles are probably going to have to help against Nick Bosa, because I think they would rather, probably have Lane Johnson just going on his own against whoever else is on the edge, Epucam or whoever, and then have Nick Bosa with that help over there. But I think the Niners pass rush is really, really good. And so is the Eagles. So that's where we have to talk about, 3rd downs. Both these teams' offenses are not used to being in 3rd and longs because they're so effective on early downs. So that might be an area where this game will be decided is which, team and scheme and quarterback can come through on those 3rd down and longs. Looking at the Niners offensively versus the Eagles defense, Dilly, what are you so intrigued about this side of the football for the Niners attacking this Eagles defense?
It's something that AC brought up in our pregame that I also agreed with, is that the Cowboys defense kind of gave the blueprint on what to do if you're the Eagles to stop the 49ers offense, because I don't think they were that effective against the Cowboys, to be honest with you. It kind of looked like the first time we saw Purdy be the rookie quarterback that he is. They were blitzing him a lot. They were having to try to make him make decisions. And there was a couple of times where they were set up in really good field position, and the Cowboys were able to hold them to a field goal because, boom, it's 3rd down and 8. And you got to get a play down the field. And they said, let's bring the rush. We're going to try to make him make a throw. And he has to throw incomplete. Eagles defense is right up there at the same caliber, maybe even better. So automatically you're putting an assumption that you kind of have to have Purdy make the plays to go down the field. And can he do that? I don't really know. My bet this week is that he is going to go under on his passing yards, which is projected to be 215. I've got the under on that this week, betting purposes. So the thing is that I just don't see him being able to do that if the Eagles are going to put that same kind of pressure. Again, I talked about it last week. They've got all the playmakers you want on offense. You have that opportunity to go, okay, we've got Debo, we've got George Kittle, we've got Brandon Ayuk. These are playmakers you want on your team. McCaffrey at this time. But are they going to be able to do that? I don't know. McCaffrey running is going to be another thing to consider, because I don't think McCaffrey did very well for about 3 quarters against the Cowboys. And in the 4th quarter, got the runs. Yeah, he was able to get it done and finish the game. And Elijah Mitchell finished the game up as well. Are the Eagles going to be able to stop that? I think they can. Again, McCaffrey's stopping McCaffrey is easier said than done. But still, I think that defense is going to be able to put that pressure. So I think that pretty much it comes down to the game plan of the Eagles. Are you going to force Purdy to make these decisions? Because he's not a top-tier caliber talented quarterback. You know what I mean? He's going to have to make the throws necessary to be like, okay, now we're in the Super Bowl. Right. I think, like we said, if this matchup comes down to all the semantics are pretty close and these teams match up here and there, it comes down to QB play. And I don't know if Purdy is really necessarily ready for the team he's about to face, because if he struggled against the Cowboys, I feel like there's kind of some big similarities there with the Eagles. And I just don't see that being a favorable matchup for him. Is he going to be able to adjust here in 1 week's time? I can't confirm that for sure.
Okay, so I want to segue from that McCaffrey point, because I think just as the other side is probably determined on the run game and the success in the run game, this side I believe is as well. So looking at last week, the Cowboys run defense, I did kind of say, I thought it was a little bit weaker than it was. They were ranked 5th in run defense DVOA. which is pretty good. And I do think the Cowboys defense is a fast unit, and I think that plays, as we said last week, that's kind of what you want against the Niners because of all the like the wide zone stuff and stuff that they do. Their speed really comes in handy. The Eagles are actually not that great against the run this year in terms of like overall averages. So they're 21st in run DVOA, and they're actually, this is a funny stat because when you consider the defensive tackles that they have, they're last in short yardage run defense, 32nd. They're also 26th in creating negative runs. So there is a chance here for the Niners to actually have more success running the ball against the Eagles than against the Cowboys, which I think was a big problem, as you guys said, until the fourth quarter, until later, because they wore out the Cowboys. Like with the Cowboys, they have the speed early in the game. They're flowing to the football. They're wild, all that stuff. Then the Eagles are kind of more like of a bigger defensive line. AC, correct me if I'm wrong, but they've got a bunch of big people, and they're big, they're powerful. They're not as fast, but probably in that fourth quarter they'll be able to stand up a little bit better. Yeah. But maybe overall they're not as explosive or good.
Well, and all of a sudden, a lot of that had to do with, if you look at the first 3 games of the season with Jordan Davis, and then Jordan Davis got injured, and then we had that horrible time of stopping the run, and that's when we picked up Linval Joseph and Sue just to be fillers, right? And then Milton Williams comes to play. I would be interested to see what those numbers are in the last half of the season.
I still think they're below average, but I
definitely
don't...
below average for sure.
Yeah,
so that's you bring up a good point there, because it's impressive in that's DVOA, so not numbers wise, because a lot of teams can't have to stop running on the Eagles because they're out of it and need to come back, right? That's why for me, it's always been impressive that the Eagles have the number 1 pass statistically defense in the NFL when they're beating teams a lot and teams have to pass. But you're right. There was a part of that season which you're right. It could be an Achilles heel still, where it'd be in NFL seasons, something in the playoffs, something always comes back that you just always thought that's a weak spot in the team. And then they kind of hide it for a bit. And then all of a sudden, when you get in the playoffs, it's the same thing that comes back to bite you. And it's I thought I figured that out, but maybe they never really figured it out. It's just the way they were winning games dictated that.
It's happened to the Patriots a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So it's, you're right. And I think to be honest, I think they're better off. I think they're better off running Mitchell and Debo than they are McCaffrey. McCaffrey just doesn't look like if you're going to do McCaffrey, some swing stuff, which I do think, like you said, if the Eagles' weakness is up the middle, then you want Mitchell. You don't want McCaffrey doing that, or you want Debo, right?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a pretty even split between all 3 of them, honestly. I think we're going to see more Debo in this game than we did last game. I think we're going to see Mitchell. I think we're going to see McCaffrey because of the injuries, and also I think they're going to try to focus McCaffrey in the receiving game, which is another aspect of the Eagles' kind of weakness, where the Eagles' linebacking play, as much as it's improved from recent terrible seasons, they're still 24th against running backs in the receiving game, which is an area that I thought the Giants could take advantage of with Saquon, but they weren't really able to. I guess the game, they were just so outmatched, it felt like.
But when you watch that Eagles-Giants game, the way they, is it more just the Giants' O-line and coaching? We stuffed the run, or it felt like we were stuffing the run a lot. Besides Saquon's big run, he had that big run for 30, 40 yards. He probably finished with 75?
I know he didn't even run it a lot, which was kind of disappointing. I think he only had 8 touches, if I'm being honest with you. I think it was so looking at the numbers, and I can't tell you when in the game these numbers were accumulated, but 9 rushes for 61 yards, which is 6.7 yards per carry.
And his long was?
His long
was 35.
hold on. Does it even say? I don't see it here, but I'd have to look. 2 catches for 21 yards. So yeah, he didn't even touch the ball enough, which is just
true. And it's the same time the first time around too, when he was healthy, right? He didn't even play the second half.
Yeah.
No, that's a big thing. Stopping the run, and like I said, that's why San Francisco is the way San Francisco played against the Cowboys, right? If the Cowboys get some more points and not give San Francisco field position on the one turnover and then give away points and then they come back and score. It's like it's a different game, and like how long does Shanahan stay with his game plan?
Yeah.
And I do think we'll get into the passing because I'm a lot more confident in that. But JG Gannon, our defensive coordinator, has been underrated. He's put up some good schemes, especially with that secondary, and the type of blitzes here and there.
Yeah,
So.
I want to talk about that scheme a little bit, just real quick, not to get too like nerdy on the viewers here, but in terms of the scheme of the Eagles and the differences between the Cowboys, because I think it is such a big factor when talking about the Niners, because like we said, the Cowboys did do a great job against the Niners. Like they held them to a low for Purdy, I want to say, and obviously Dan Quinn knows Shanahan, so there's things he's going to put on tape, or he's going to do things that maybe another coordinator does not know or would not know to put in the game plan. But in terms of the Cowboys, like what they've kind of been is that cover one kind of single high team, and the Eagles are a lot more so, which is why I think they do struggle against the run at times, is because they're such a two high team, right? They like to play their quarters and their cover two and their cover six and stuff like that. So it doesn't allow them to have more bodies in the box where Dallas kind of does. So that's like a big fundamental defensive difference. If you guys out there are listening, it's basically one more guys in the box because there's two safeties deep, and one safety deep for Dallas instead of two, right? So that's a big fundamental difference. It will be interesting to see if Gannon does shift more towards playing different styles of coverage because he's confident in the pass coverage and the corners. But I think to get to AC here with the coverage, I think the big thing for the Niners attacking the Eagles is in the middle of the field. And that's where the Niners do like to throw the ball with Debo and McCaffrey and Kittle, is like in the middle of the field, because you want to throw against the safeties and the linebackers as opposed to the perimeter corners. And the screen game, I mean, because the Eagles are going to play zone and you're going to try to force those linebackers to tackle Debo and stuff like that. So those are areas that I think the Niners are going to try to attack. AC, what makes you confident about this unit other than being first against the pass this year against Brock Purdy?
Well, we talked a lot about Avonte Maddox, our nickel corner, who might be back again, but I thought the other backup, Josiah Scott, was going to play. But what they did was Blankenship actually is the safety that took over for Gardner Johnson when he got injured. But Gardner Johnson is he didn't have to play much nickel for the Eagles before his injury because we had Avonte Maddox, and he could play more that in the box safety, come up, and he also is unbelievable in coverage too, with obviously 6 picks for a bit there, and he missed 5 games.
That by the way, was one of the worst trades. Like I never understood.
It was like a 4th round pick and
the Saints trading
swap.
him. He was so good with the Saints too. I think they missed him a lot. That's a great point, AC. Because they went more to 3 safeties, which is actually what they call like big nickel, right? And Dallas did that a lot last week, right? They had Curse, Hooker, and Wilson are the 3 safeties for Dallas, and Curse was in the box a lot, and that's what the Eagles might do. Even if they have Maddox, they might have 3 safeties out there.
No, definitely. And like it's funny with like watching Blankenship play. Like he's from Middle Tennessee and he's just like a baller. It's crazy. That first game he came in against the Packers, remember that game? He had that crazy pick. It was an overthrow, but still like the hands and stuff, and that's when everyone was scared because like you're putting in a rookie for Gardner Johnson, right? And that's what I think Gannon did so well was like, hey, this Josiah Scott can't play. Like, let's try to move things around, like you were saying, with the 3 safeties. And then Epps also can be burned in coverage, but is a great tackler, right? So it can be interesting how we've been pretty good against tight ends this year. It's going to be interesting. But like we said, the big thing with that coverage, if we can get a pass rush on Purdy, yes, San Francisco might be able to run the ball, and that could hurt us. But if you get pressure on Purdy, I just need to see him go downfield with the ball. Because in the past, the Eagles' kryptonite have been big plays down the field. Look at the the Cowboys game when we had Minshew in, that 3rd and 30. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that. If you look at the games we've lost, there's like big over the top plays that burn it and then really take the momentum out of that defense. Where like we never get burned like that. So I do think somehow if San Francisco wants to, they're going to have to push the field. But Purdy on the road, in a big environment. It's like against that pass rush, like it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. And I know it's going to be tough for the Eagles offense too. I just can't see
That's
it.
why it's a great football game, AC.
It's
That's why it's a great
one.
game. Billy, do you have any final points before we get to our overall prediction and our overall point?
No, I not much that I can add. What I will say is that I think, I always like to go with the home field kind of advantage. I really think that plays a big point in here. And, of course, the 49ers have had that home field advantage here. They're not getting that this time. We know what the Eagles' home field crowd is like. It's going to be very raucous, NFC Championship. I think that's something that, it's intimidating for anybody. But for a rookie quarterback, I mean, that's putting them in a pretty harsh situation. So
pretty harsh.
He's only been on the road twice too, right?
Yeah.
Like that they were home schedule heavy too when he started playing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. They've mostly played at home. I don't know how many. I think
he played like they played in like Vegas. Like he hasn't even been on the East Coast. Has he even traveled that far?
I don't know. I didn't look.
Here, you know what? I'll take a look at what their schedule was here.
Right there.
So AC, we kind of know who you're picking.
Long flights.
AC, we know who you're picking. Break it down, bro. Give it to me. Why are the Eagles gonna win?
I'm gonna actually give Dylan credit. I actually thought the Cowboys were a very good team this year, and I really didn't. And this could hurt me going forward if we lose to the Niners. I really didn't want to play Dallas. I think Dallas matches up better against us just because of a divisional team, the last game, and I just couldn't lose them. So I thank the Niners in that regard because that was a big thing. I did not want to play the Dallas Cowboys. So I guess that's kind of a compliment, Dilly.
Well, thank you. That's a decent consolation prize.
Yeah. I think it comes down to Purdy and that Eagles defense at home. I actually think it's a slap in the face that the Eagles are only. I'm gonna play up the underdog, the Rocky. I think it's a slap in the face that the Eagles are only favored by 2.5. They say home field advantage is normally like 2-3 points, so it's a pick 'em. Yeah, right. We're going big. We're going 31-17. This is going to be my 7th NFC Championship since I've been alive. 4 with McNabb, and then 3 in this new era. The last loss actually was 2008. Last time the Eagles lost against Arizona Cardinals, and that was on the road though. So the last home loss actually was probably worse. It was the Bucks.
I
think it was the Bucks at home.
0-2?
Yeah. Or it might have been even the Rant. No, it was the Bucks at home. Yeah. No, Panthers at home.
Oh, and 03, 04. Yeah.
Yeah, Panthers at home because then 04, 05 we beat the Falcons. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, anyways, I'm going Eagles. I shouldn't even be this confident because I always don't like getting too confident because it just hurts so much more. But like I'm very confident in this game.
Dilly, I think you're also riding with the Eagles. So break down why you're taking one of the teams from the NFC Beast.
All right. Well, first off, to the point of Purdy being on the road, he's been on the road twice in his career here in the NFL. He beat the Seahawks in December, that Thursday night game, and then he beat the Raiders in overtime. Those were the 2 games. So he has been on the East Coast once, or no, not even on the East Coast. Whatever. He was with 2 West Coast games. I'm going Eagles here. I really what it comes down for me, I think, was the performances of last week. And I know we don't like to harp on like what we saw last week, right? It's one game, but I saw one performance where a team was dominating, and I saw another where there were weaknesses that really could harm them here going into the Super Bowl. And like I said, I think there's certain matchups that are good. The McCaffrey run situation for the 49ers could be a big factor, or him in the receiving game. But I think the hostile environment of Philadelphia, first off, home field advantage, huge here. Second, if it's coming down to Purdy versus Hurts, let's be honest, Hurts has been the better quarterback. He's got the skills and the production necessary to win this kind of game. And I just don't know how I feel about that. Now, I did say in my complete playoff predictions, which you can still watch on this channel, I've only gotten one game wrong on that so far. And I did pick the 49ers to beat the Eagles in that game. I just think things are different now. I think seeing the games that we've watched for the 2 games for the 49ers and 1 game against the Eagles, I just see more out of the Eagles than I do the 49ers. I'm not I'm not taking away from the 49ers because I think their defense is very good. But if I have to go kind of a close situation, who do I feel is the better team right now, which is when you need to be better, like not in terms of like, this is the NFC Championship game, This is where moments are made up to get to the Super Bowl. And I feel like the Eagles are just better at more things right now than the 49ers. So I'm going to go with the Eagles. What's my final going to be? I think this is another low-scoring game. I don't see this being very high-scoring. I know the offense for the Eagles was very good last week, but I just don't know if they're going to be as dominant. 38 point. I don't think they're going to score 38 points. But against the Niners here, I'm going to go 24-17. I think they still are able to stop the 49ers a lot. Maybe the 49ers get a fourth quarter touchdown, something like that, and get that 17. But I think the Eagles are going to push it through, and I hope they win my bet. Thank you.
Nice. And I'll just add, I said 31 because I'm not saying the offense is going to score that many points. That's two pick sixes.
Oh! This man is bull. All right.
So 17-17 with 2 point pick sixes. Yeah, we'll make it 31-17.
I just want to point out this comment by saying, which I do think I might agree with. He says whoever wins the NFC Championship is winning the Super Bowl. And I don't think I necessarily disagree because typically when it comes to the Super Bowl, I usually pick the better team, as in TEAM. Okay. So let's pick the game. I think you guys know who I'm picking. Somebody's got to pick the San Francisco 49ers here. Bang! Bang! Why am I picking the Niners? Because unlike everybody else here, I'm dead serious. I believe in Purdy. I do. I think he's a good football player. I know he's a 7th round pick. I know he's Mr. Irrelevant. But from what I've seen, the guy has poise. He has confidence. He just has it to me. Like, under pressure, 48% of his dropbacks last week. It's not going to be any worse than it was last week. 48%, and he didn't turn it over. And he made all the throws at the end of the game. And when he was kept clean, he was 15 for 17 for 159 yards. So even if he has protection, he's going to make it happen. I do think, though, that how the Niners win this game is that defense comes to play. Number 1 defense plays like number 1 defense. They stop the run. On the other side of the ball, they manage the game through their running game, through their screen game. I do believe that these two rosters are very, very balanced, very, very even. But I'm going with the Niners because I think they've got the better coaches. I'm taking my guy Kyle Shanahan. I'm taking DeMeco Ryans. And I think the San Francisco 49ers go to Philadelphia. Dun, 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 dun. Brock Purdy! 23-20, 49ers. AC?
You can't, but Apollo Creed was from California, man. You can't do that. You can't say that, man.
Brock Purdy is the new Rocky. He's gonna win in Philadelphia.
Nah, dude.
Yeah, hold on. I'm gonna discredit someone. I'm gonna discredit one of my own teams here. Remember the last time somebody dissed Rocky? That was the Vikings. They got destroyed by the Eagles the last time.
I didn't diss Rocky. I'm saying Purdy is Rocky.
You're comparing it. It's a comparison. I don't know. I ain't feeling it. I ain't feeling that one.
We'll see. I hope the San Francisco fans go and put the Niners jersey on Rocky like it happened last time. Like that was the big. And that was a game, too, that was over pretty quick. I'm not saying that is.
Very quickly.
Purdy has to protect the ball, which he has done. It's going to be a great game. I won't be as confident as I am right now, probably even after we get off this chat.
It'll be like starting the game. It'll be like.
I'll be like, you said too much, man. It's never going to happen.
Alright.
The
make your
world
point
knows
about-
this guy in Vancouver, Canada said this, man. That's why the Eagles aren't going to win. I gotta
Hey,
Hey,
win.
everyone
about
watching
Purdy.
this right now that's an Eagles fan, you got Big Al hyped, AC.
Yeah,
Let's
I was
go.
hyped.
No, I know, but I have weird superstitions. Like, if it's just like I think like where I sit on the couch affects the game
I know, I've been there.
Oh yeah,
because it totally
it's like
does.
that.
It totally does. You
Totally
have
does.
a huge impact. But what you guys do have a huge impact is to this channel, guys. So don't forget to subscribe if you haven't. Don't forget to Gronk spike the like button. We appreciate everybody that was here live. And do you guys want to stick around for like a few minutes to see if they have questions or what?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's open the chat, see what anybody has to think. Of course, we've got these two big games. If anybody has a discussion on that or any questions coming up here in the future with the channel. I do want to mention one point about Purdy before we get into those questions. You brought up the poise of him, and I like his confidence. I like his swagger, but man, this is a big moment. I mean, every moment it gets bigger. I just don't know if it's going to be like if he's going to be able to feel that pressure with this kind of situation. That's just how I feel. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I believe in the kid. I believe in the kid, man. I believe.
I get it. I get it. Well,
I know a lot of people are doubting
him.
him. I know a lot of people are doubting him. It's okay.
I'm not doubting the guy. Like, I've liked his story here so far, and it's a heck of a story. I picked him to win the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to be here and sitting like I'm dissing the guy. I just, this is a moment that I don't know what they're
Dylan,
equipped
you think I'm supposed to be impressed by beating the Giants? Come on. Who'd y'all pick in the AFC? I picked the Bengals, AC picked the Bengals, and Dylan picked the Kansas City Chiefs. Which matchup? So far, no questions. If that's what we're gonna get, that's okay. We'll just see you guys later. But I do want to ask a question to these two guys. Which matchup do you guys want to see the most in the Super Bowl?
I think if Mahomes is fully healthy, I would like to see Kansas City and Philly. I mean, I'm not saying that just because those were my two picks, but I feel like that'd be a heck of a matchup. I don't know if there's really one bad matchup, to be honest. But if I had to pick like who I thought was the best throughout the whole season here, I would say Kansas City and Philly.
AC?
Yeah, I think like at the beginning of the season, the four best teams. Like I think this is one of the, like a lot of years, like last year with the Rams being so good, you had the same teams too. It's funny then though. It's like with the Rams, like I've had, it's hard to think that how we thought of the Rams last year. It's crazy. Like maybe the craziest drop off.
Such a drop off. Yeah.
But I don't think you can go wrong with any of the matchups. You could have the Super Bowl rematch with the Chiefs and the Niners.
Mm-hmm.
You could have the Bengals Niners with two good fan bases. Anytime you have the Bengals
they played twice in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and then anytime you have a team that's never won the Super Bowl, that's exciting, right? Eagles Bengals, I think offensive talent wise would be the most exciting instead of Bengals 49ers. I understand the 49ers offense. I just think maybe Hurts takes the Eagles offense like one step better. Like obviously Debo is AJ Brown, CMC is obviously people would say is better than Sanders, but Sanders is still a great player. And then Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. Like I just feel like that would be more of a powerhouse, like I'll beat you one-on-one type game. And then Eagles Chiefs is always like Andy Reid versus the Eagles.
Yeah, that feels like the weirdest matchup from a storyline standpoint. Eagles Bengals. I can't really think off the top of my head what the storyline would be there.
And I think it would be such an intriguing matchup maybe for that, just kind of a mystery. You know what I mean? Like, what are we going to actually get from that game? And then, like you said, the Eagles offense with all those weapons versus, the Bengals with Chase and Higgins and Boyd. And that would be a pretty good offensive matchup for sure.
What's the latest on Mahomes? So I saw at practice today, he was jogging around. He seems to be doing better overall with the ankle. So I don't think he'll be 100%, but he does seem to be doing better. Do we think either game will be a blowout? I think other than AC thinking the Eagles will win by 14, we were all pretty close on the spreads of the scores.
But it's a fair point for AC. Yeah, I got 7 on the Eagles game, and I said 3 on the Chiefs game. So I don't think they're going to be blowouts, personally.
Shaw says, is the Bengals running on second-string offensive tackles mostly? So, yes, both of their tackles are second-string. They both played last week, though, against Buffalo. So, I mean, not as many people are talking about that anymore because they were just so darn good against the Bills. But maybe they get exposed this week. Who knows?
Yeah, they gave up, 1 sack last week? Which I don't
and
think
they ran the ball, too.
Yeah, and we did not expect that at all. And in fact, that's why I picked the Bills to win that game, was because I thought that was going to be such an issue, and it turned out to be the complete opposite. So,
Vlad says he wants the Niners and the Bengals. He's assuming the Niners take advantage of the Eagles' aggressiveness and target the outside with end arounds and screens. I know the middle of the field is also open. He says take away Miles and RPO is dead. Clearly a Niners fan. If Miles is held, it becomes one-dimensional. Watch which is what they'll need. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, that's it. Appreciate everybody tuning in. If you haven't already, Gronk spike the like button. Thank you to Dilly. Thank you to AC for both being here and picking the games. And we'll see what happens. We'll see who wins. We'll see who will be headed to the Super Bowl. Either way, as we discussed, it's going to be a great Super Bowl, so I'm looking forward to it. Last year at this point, I was not really excited because, I don't know, it just felt like last year was a different vibe. I felt like the Bengals were going to, the Bengals didn't really feel like they were supposed to be there in the Super Bowl when I watched it. I don't know if you guys felt the same way.
Well, and also your Bucks and the Patriots, they weren't there either. So I get that. I understand where you're coming from.
Well, the Bucks were injured. They would have been there, but we had to give it a year.
Well, it's just like even looking back on the Rams, it's like it was that defense and that offense was good, but it's like Kupp Kupp, amazing player, like one of the best receivers in the league, never felt like this unbelievable player. Like their running backs, I think
it was a weak year in general.
It was, you know what I mean? And Stafford, and it was good. Stafford deserved one for what he put up with in Detroit. And I feel like if there was any conspiracies, it would be that one. Let's give the Rams. Didn't they host it too?
Yeah, they hosted
very
it.
CFL.
Yeah, it was in their stadium and all
very
that.
CFL. No, if you think about it, the CFL, like a team's crappy, and then if they host the Grey Cup, somehow like there's weird trades, and all of a sudden they have a stacked roster and they win the Grey Cup at home. So
and they almost sold pretty much their football soul to get that ring too. Like they traded everybody. They got no draft picks. So
picks.
They got their one. So
I will say, I think all 4 of these teams, regardless of the result, will be in it long term. I think all of them will be good next year too. So. Yeah, that makes it even more interesting because we could see the same matchups next year. But thanks, guys, for tuning in. We will see you soon, and a lot more content coming to you. Best Bets coming out tomorrow morning, so make sure to check that out. It's Mitch, AC, Dilly. Peace, guys.